in order to get your head out of your ass, you have to sit and talk about yourself for hours, a week. And so it's very confusing endeavor. You're like, okay, I want to stop being so self-involved, but I also, in order to become less self-involved, I have to be extra self-involved.
Hey, Heal Squad, get ready to hear some stories from a woman who tells it like it is, holding nothing back, and is a pop culture icon. Chelsea Handler is here today. That's right, she is Grammy-nominated comedian, television host, podcaster, women's health advocate, 6-time New York Times best-selling author. I know she's going to get the 7th title with her newest book. I'll have what she's having. We're going to get into how she was born to hustle. Guys, she was literally an entrepreneur at age 6. This book was blowing my mind. I didn't know if it was real or not, so we're going to get into all of that. Chelsea also shares her journey through anger, grief, panic attacks, and how therapy changed her life. Plus, how Jane Fonda called her out. We're going to get into all of that, but first, our quote of the day. Happiness is an attitude. I choose it, even when it doesn't choose me. And that is from Chelsea Handler. She says, I'll chase it around all day long until it gathers me back up into its good graces. And so, friends, don't forget, you can see her live in Las Vegas at her residency at the Cosmopolitan, a history-making residency nonetheless, as she is the Cosmopolitan's first female resident comedian. Really cool. I just love Chelsea, and I hope you guys love our chat. Enjoy. Well, Chelsea, thank you so much for taking time to do this. I am obsessed with your book. I haven't finished it yet, but I feel like I'm going on this journey with you and I'm learning so much. I mean, the fact that at such a young age, you were able to identify things like, I want to fly first class, and wanting to start a business. I mean, it just said so much about who you are. And I just was so curious when I was reading this, where that confidence came from, where that kind of gusto came from. Because I've never heard anything like this before.
It's so funny. I don't know. I mean, I think I know I was kind of just born with this attitude of like, okay, what's going on? Like hustler, like I was a little hustler. I wanted action. I remember being born. I remember being brought home to my parents' house and looking around and seeing too many people. I'm like, why are there so many other people here already? And I was the youngest of 6 kids, so I was pissed. I was pissed that my parents didn't seem like financially prepared. They didn't seem like they had any plan whatsoever about anything. And I was like a businesswoman. Like as soon as I could speak, I was like, whoa, like, do I have a dowry? What's our game plan here? Do you guys have money set aside for our college education? My dad would be like, who the fuck is this little nightmare? Who is she? I mean, it was beyond precocious. So it's really fun now to reflect back on my childhood and understand that it was just one huge through line. And when I begin the book with the kind of the letter to my, the letter from when I'm a little girl to kind of describe the woman that I want to become and the woman I envision myself becoming, who's brave and strong and stands up for people and isn't scared, to do the right thing or to tell the truth at no matter what the cost. Like, I feel many of us don't really take the time to remember what we thought we were going to be when we were little, and not in terms of just your profession, but how you were going to be in the world. And I always wanted to be a single woman, brazen, and not have kids, not have a husband. Like I imagined myself having lovers all over the world. When I was like 6, I was like, I can't wait to have international love affairs, like the Love Boat. And I had these ideas and at the time, it was obviously ridiculous because I was 6, but now when I think about it, it's like, well, I wasn't that far off, because that's kind of the life that I have carved out for myself. And for me, the book is a reminder for all of us to think about where we are, where we've been, where we're going, and are we on the right track of this idea we had of ourselves? Are we achieving even more, or did we take a complete detour? But to really reflect on it, I think is so powerful, because when I thought back to when I was a little girl, I thought, oh my God, I would be so happy with finding out this is what happened.
I'm just like, I'm telling you, I'm reading it. I'm like, is she joking? This can't be real. This must be like, embellished stories because you're a storyteller. But because I don't understand. Like, you must have. I mean, I was wise beyond my years when I was young, but this is like on crack wise beyond your years. At 6 to be thinking about the woman you want to become. I never thought about the woman I wanted to become, and you became that. And I know that I had thoughts like, and they became, but this is like a whole other level. You're a unicorn. You are a very unique human. I'm sure you've been told this before, but I was like, I'm obsessed with you.
Oh, well, thank you. I thank you. I think it's not that I was so wise. I think I was so determined. And I think when you are so determined and you have such a clear idea of the life you want to live. Like I remember growing up, I grew up with the Brady Bunch. The Brady Bunch, and like, the father, the
Me
mother, the
too.
6 kids, and the yeah, and then they had Alice, their housekeeper. I was like, where the fuck is our Alice? Like I wanted the life style that was being represented to me in different television shows. And also, I just felt like I don't want to say a superior complex, because I never thought I was better than everyone, but I definitely thought I was like, I can get this before anyone else can. Like, I know how to hustle. I'm going to hustle, because obviously I didn't grow up poor. It's not like we were indigent or anything like that. I'm white. I'm, attractive. I have all of the advantages that you need to be successful. But I also knew you can take that and add like a hustle to it, and you're going to really, really get everything you want. And by virtue of that, there's not going to be a lot of people that are going to be able to tell you what to do. You won't have a lot of bosses in your life when you become such a boss. Like you can't
Yeah.
listen to other people. Even if I wanted to, like when I worked at I'd be like, guys, don't even, please don't talk to me. Like this is what it's going to happen. And I just thought I knew better, and that was a silly, I mean, it was a fun, awesome, silly show that got away with nonsense. But on a bigger level, it kind of just turned out in my life that there aren't a lot of people that tell me what to do. And it's not because I can't take notes, or I actually appreciate that kind of feedback. It's just that I've had such an idea. It's like I've been a bowling ball since I was a little girl, and I never realized, when you're in the hustle, you don't really think about the reflection of the hustle and all of that you've done. And I know you know that, Maria, like, this industry is a hustle. You're
Mhm.
always, it's not like there's a lot of downtime. And you have to really create opportunities for yourself. And I wanted to be in an arena in the world where it was up to me, not up to other people.
Yeah, I just think, you know, being a boss from go, I understand that feeling because I was the boss in my family too. But and it is hard to have bosses when you're the boss. But you just I wondered, like, did your siblings, were any of them like you at all? Where did this come from? And I do know that we are what we are from go. I had a famous wrestler, his speech when he got in the Hall of Fame, he said um something to the effect of, and I'm not remembering right now, you are who you are from go. And it sounds very clear that you were this from go. But were your parents anything like this? You know,
No, my parents were not. My dad was Jewish and older. He had me when he was 42, which isn't that old nowadays when people have kids. My mom was 35. My mom was German, European, very not like your kind of prototype German woman or what people would think of. Like she was very soft spoken, very demure, the opposite of what I'm doing. just never would never even like, if she found a hair in her salad, she would never even return it. Like I remember being 8 and we were at one of those silly chain restaurants and she got a salad with hair in it. And I was like, excuse me, can you please come back here? My mom has a hair in her salad. My mom's like, Chelsea, stop, stop, stop. It's not a big deal. She was very surprised by me as a personality because I was so different from her. And my brothers and sisters and I all have lots of similarities, but we're all very different. And no, I know that I'm unique in my endeavors and my kind of ambition and my kind of like lifestyle aspiration. When I went on that first class, when I went on that first plane and saw first class, I'm like, whoa, 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 this is the only option now. Like I already saw it. If you
Tell
want,
everybody how old you were when you made this decision.
well, the first time I went, I was 8, and then the next time the first time I flew first class alone was 13. But and my family sat in the back and coached, just so everyone's clear about.
But P.S. She raised the money in her business to
Yes,
buy herself the ticket at 13.
yes.
I mean, I mooched first class off of my best friend whose mom was a flight attendant. So they went in back and I
Oh yeah, exactly. I would have done that too. I mean, any opportunity. I was like, but
Yeah.
I'm like, if you didn't want me to see the first class section, first of all, take me in through the coach section. They shouldn't take people through the first class section. And my mom, we weren't, we didn't have a lot of money. We weren't broke, but we didn't have like, we weren't rolling in it. So my mom was like, absolutely not. You're never sitting in first class. Like that's a fantasy. I'm like, maybe for you. I'm like, I will totally be sitting in first class. Like those are my people. So it was in a very materialistic sense at the outset, like I just looked around. I grew up in a very kind of middle-class Jewish neighborhood where everybody had the newest things. Everyone had the Cabbage Patch dolls when they came out. You got like 6 of them. I was telling my parents, like, you have to get online. You have to get online at Toys R Us and go get me the Cabbage Patch Kid. Everyone's got one. And if you want me to fit in, I need the Cabbage Patch Kid. And they would come back with some like, imitation preemie Cabbage Patch, like a working vagina, and a bald spot. So like they were never in it and they were never cooperative. And I wanted to fit in and I thought that was the way to fit in. And then as you grow up and you grow older, you're like, well, I'm not trying to fit in that much. You know what I mean? Like you kind of realize, wait, I don't have to try so hard. I actually am cool, but I knew my family was not cool.
I'm dead. So, okay. You also started babysitting. So you had your lemonade business. You fired your sister because she was taking too much and you found someone else. But then you also started babysitting. Can you just share that? Because I really want people to understand why I'm so obsessed with this book right now. Because it was such a great escape and such a fun little like, and the fact that the chapters are so short, you just have like this quick anecdote, really fun moment, get to know you in some way. But I loved when you're talking about babysitting and then the punchline at the end of the ages, I literally was screaming in my bed.
Yeah, I first I had the lemonade stand, and then I was like, okay, I've got to start making some money. Once I saw the plan, I got back from California. We had been
How
on.
old?
This was 10-ish. Yeah, this was 10. Sorry, okay. I get my ages confused. Well, when I started the lemonade stand, I was 8. Then I
I thought you were
realized it
6.
wasn't
Okay.
going to work. We needed a hard lemonade stand. I'm like, if we need more profit margin, like I can't just sell lemonade all day for like, 50 cents and make any money. So I fired my sister because she was overhead. And then I went around the neighborhood and canvassed the neighborhood and walked up to all of these renters that were renting houses on Martha's Vineyard. That's where we spent our summers, which makes us sound very wealthy. We weren't wealthy, I promise you. And I went up to every door and I was like, hi, my name is Chelsea Handler. I'm an entrepreneur. I have a lemonade business. And if you have any other 10-year-olds you'd like me to play with, or I could play with, like, I would also like to bring them into my business. And I found this 10-year-old named Nelson, who I started grooming right away. I was like, Nelson, do you know how to make a whiskey soda? And we made a lot of money on the first day, something like $59 or $60, which was unheard of. But by the end of the week, we had made $359.
But who buys liquor from a 10-year-old? That's the other thing I was
Adults,
screaming about.
adults that are with their children on vacation, they're like they think, I guess they thought, oh, I'm on an island. We're in Martha's Vineyard. Like, Maybe it's legal. Who knows? And who cares, by the way? I was making out like a bandit. And by the end of the week, once I realized how much money I had, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then I gave Nelson his commission from the $359, which was $3.59. He was over the moon. He was so excited. He's like, oh my God. And then I realized like he was just kind of like a kid. And I always remember being around kids and being like, these are not my people either. Like I'm not a kid, I'm a woman. And I remember thinking after my lemonade stand, I'm like, this isn't, I know I could make more money. Like I could make even more money. So then I was like, okay, what about babysitting? There are no rules around babysitting, especially on like a tourist island like Martha's Vineyard. Like I could easily call every hotel, which I did. And I had that kind of gusto where I did call every hotel. I was like, I had a business acumen. And my
At 10.
10, and I lied though because I always looked older. So I said I was 15, and I spent that summer babysitting for a 14-year-old boy.
At 10.
Yeah. And my brothers and sisters, whenever we talk about these stories, they're always like, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. And they always are saying that to me, like I embellish so much. And then I'll find someone in my family that remembers. I'm like, Roy, do you remember when? And he's like, that absolutely happened. He'll rebut my sisters. So I feel vindicated in many ways too.
I can't even. So, okay, you're a unicorn. I just wonder, like, when you look back, do you feel like you missed anything in your childhood because you were being such an adult?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I had a lot of social problems. Like my brother died when I was 9, and that really kind of fucked me up because my parents were already pretty, not present. They had 6 children. They were tired. My mom napped like a cat. My dad was kind of had like a half job that didn't make any sense, like a used car dealer, and he didn't really. So there was a lot of like neglect anyway, not neglect that would have destroyed or hurt me, but that combined with my brother dying kind of made everyone in our family just retreat to their corners of grief, including my parents. My dad never, ever recovered from my brother dying. And my mom was like a mom, a real mom, so she knew that she had 5 other children to really take care of. And so she kind of showed back up, but they they weren't, really present to begin with. So I think I missed out on like I worried a lot about my dad financially. We'd get like phone calls like, okay, they're going to turn off the electricity and stuff like that. It's not like ever went hungry. It wasn't like that, but it was definitely not stable. And in comparison to all my friends whose parents were driving around in, new Mercedes and BMWs, my dad had like, a Toyota Supra that from 1965 that he'd pull up and like one door would open and you'd have to get in the driver's seat side. Like it was embarrassing. It was kind of like Sanford and Son. And but I think I did probably miss out on a lot of childhood stuff because I was always so grown up. And I think if you're the youngest also of your family, aren't you the youngest, Maria? Don't you
I'm
have,
the oldest.
oh, you're the oldest. Okay, exactly the opposite. How many are in your family? 4?
Just us two.
2. Okay. So the being the youngest is kind of like the opposite of both of those experiences, especially of 6. You grow up so fast. Like you absorb so much, which is why I love like why I'm so curious and why I absorb so much information is because when you have 5 older brothers and sisters, you have no choice but to mature so quickly because they're all growing up and you're trying to keep up. It's like going skiing with people who can ski when you can't ski. By the end of the day, you're going to know how to ski.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that. But first, friends, if you're planning a getaway, we have something for you. So, whether you're headed to the mountains for a ski trip, like we know Chelsea does, she loves Whistler, one of my favorite places on earth as well, or you're escaping to the beach for some sun, Macy's has everything you need to pack in style for cold weather adventures, bundled up with coats, earmuffs, gloves, and boots from brands like the North Face, UGG, Columbia, and Sorel. And if you're chasing warmer weather, stock up on resort wear, swimsuits, breezy dresses, and sandals from Nike, Adore Me, Mango, and one of my favorites, Free People. Don't forget your travel beauty essentials and the perfect luggage to keep you organized on the go. No matter your destination, Macy's has you covered. And if you need a little inspo, of course, you know, I'm linking all of my travel must-haves in my Macy's wish list. So you can check it out in the podcast description below, or you can shop now at Macy's.com or visit your nearest Macy's store and get ready to travel today. My dad was so funny yesterday. He came to me with earmuffs, and you know, they're the ones that go behind your head and wrap around your ears. And he was trying to put them over. He goes, why they make this so small? And I go, Dad. And I just like, I flipped it. I go, I wish I got that on camera. That was cute. Um, so I marked some stuff that I wanted to go into because you also have done therapy and you can tell. And I couldn't tell which part was the therapy and which was just your inner wisdom. But I really loved, and I know it's very simple, but I really loved when you said, what other people say about you only matters if you believe what they are saying is true. That is really tough advice to put into action. Were you always good about that, or was it something you became good at?
I think first of all, therapy is the most valuable tool that we'll ever get. You know, I mean, it's like the gift of self-awareness. It's the gift of someone telling you the truth about yourself that has kind of no objective other than to kind of help you grow up and move along and kind of, you know, deal with whatever delayed grief, trauma, whatever your story is, right? So I think you know, I've gone through phases where I've cared about what other people think about me, but I've definitely noticed the times I care the most are the times when those things are true, you know, where I have acted badly or I have been crass or I have been, you know, all of the like kind of adjectives that I don't love is because I don't like that version of me, you know. So I do think, you know, I don't think I know, and you know, as a woman, what it's like to be in the public eye, whether you signed up for it or not, which we both did. I signed up for it
Mhm.
to be able to constantly let everything roll off your back like water off a duck's back. Like it's a practice that you have to get really good at doing. And I kind of did it in an unconscious way for my early 20s and 30s. Like I didn't give a shit. Like I thought I was in an arrogant way, you know, at times. Like I thought I thought I had things to say and that people would benefit from listening and that I was going to inject so much joy and fun and into people's lives, whether it be on TV or on stage. Like I really had that feeling about myself. Like I was here to make people laugh and I'm here for women and all of the things. But as you get older, you know, like I started having doubts and stuff like when I turned 40. That was kind of, I guess that's why they call it a midlife crisis, because it kind of happens in the middle of your life where you start to really self-evaluate and you're like, wait a second, something might be deep, like there might be something deeper here going on. Like, why am I so angry? Why am I always inserting myself into other people's problems, unsolicited and solicited? And, you know, I always stood on this like hill of like, well, I'm honest. I'm going to tell you the truth. If you come to me and you need me to tell you the truth, I would do that for a stranger, for any woman, any man, anyone who needed an honest opinion. And, you know, that's not always really met with, uh, like people aren't always grateful to hear the truth. Some people really don't want to hear the truth. And to kind of learn all of those things, like, okay, this behavior is nice and this behavior is funny, but is it helpful? Like, or is this necessary? Do you need, does your opinion need to be voiced? Do you need to get involved in this situation or insert yourself in this situation? And to actually like take stock of, you know, what is like the cleanest, most effective kind of human being I can be without hurting other people and still succeeding and doing what I love. But it's almost like, you know, getting a massive oil change. And you're like, okay, I'm now going to even be like more streamlined about where my efforts are going so I can create more happiness, really, you know, because I think at the end of the day, that's all we all want is to laugh and be happy and to forget about, you know, the ugliness that the world can be, you know, showing us on so many levels, in so many ways right now. And yeah, like I had a clear vision of like, this is where I'm going. So I have to go to therapy to help me get there because I fell off the track. This whole woman that I wanted to become when I was a little girl, I had lost sight of that. I had just become super successful and kind of like haphazard about everything. Everything just came to me easy, 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 easy. And then I kind of, just fell apart when I was 40. And I don't think I had like a breakdown or anything. I just think I just started to self-evaluate and realize something was wrong. I was way too angry after Trump got elected the first time. And it's like, you can't place all your anger on that. It just doesn't even make sense. Of course I was disappointed, but to be that angry
Invested.
and to learn about yourself and, the gift of self-awareness, as I said, is just invaluable. Like it is awesome to know about you from someone else.
Yeah, and it's hard because um, judgment comes with what we do. So what people think of us means something. So then it's so hard to apply the zero fucks theory. Like you can't do that when your whole thing is based on likes and people watching your show. And so where is that line?
Where is the line of not caring? Yeah, I mean, that's a practice, I think. I think it's a practice to understand that like other people's opinions of you, are not your business. Like you're not meant to hear that. And if you are, it's like I look if someone like, writes something nasty on my Instagram page or a comment, like that means zero to me. There's no reaction whatsoever. If I hear someone said something about me, same thing. I'm just like that. I shouldn't be hearing this. Like you might think you're telling, I bet this really has nothing to do with me. That's her view of me. So whatever. Like I've come to such a healthy place. Before it was kind of like bravado, like I don't care. And probably deep down I did. Now I just don't think that's a useful tool in like generating a good day.
Yeah. No, and you're committed to your happiness, which I love. Um,
A joyful person. My middle name is Joy, as I state in the book, and I am so committed to spreading joy, bringing joy, creating joy, and even I've had a rough couple of months these last months with stupid issues, house stuff, physical stuff, like injuries, all this stuff. And like every day I get up and I'm like, okay, you have a choice today. Like, I got a text last night that my dog fucking bit somebody. He's in Whistler and I'm here because I had the shoulder surgery. And I'm like, oh my God. Every minute I decide I'm not going to let my circumstances upset me, I get one more like blow,
yes,
you
it
know?
happens. When it rains, it pours.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
happening to
So,
me last night. I was like,
right.
God, why? Why, God? I mean, I'm
Why?
really
Why?
good. I handle everything. I've taken
Why?
everything like a champ. Why more?
I was like, I'm like, I literally got on my knees. I'm like, I'm grateful for everything, the good times, the bad times, but let's just speed this up. I'm grateful. I accept that I'm going through a hard time, but come on, land the plane already. Like, let's move on to the next phase.
Oh my God, it's so true. It's so true. Do you feel like you said it wasn't like a breakdown, but your moment of, okay, I need to self-evaluate was connected to any other event in your life? Did you have a hard time at work? Did you have a hard time in a relationship? Because usually there's something that rings the alarm and it's like, oh shit, I got to deal with this.
Yes, it was a bevy of things. It was Trump being elected in 2016. That blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. It was my delayed grief of my brother dying when I was a young girl. I had never visited that or talked about that with a professional ever, ever, ever. I never even cried about my brother dying until like a week after his funeral. And then I just stopped. I'm like, no more crying about this. Like, I'm a big girl. I'm going to grow up. I'm tough. It was and it was affecting my Netflix. I had just started my Netflix talk show and it just wasn't right. Like it didn't feel right. I wasn't my normal confident self. I was having like mini panic episodes where I like my leg was shaking when I'd be talking on stage. I just kind of had all of these signals that were telling me, this Oprah's famous saying, I'm not sure if she originated it, but that, everything works for you until it doesn't. Like I never understood what she meant by that. But I know now everything everything that happened in my childhood worked for me until it didn't, until I hit 40, and like all of that hubris of my 20s and 30s and all of my success didn't require me to take a look at anything. And until I started to like flounder in my performance at my job and like my work, and I was so upset about the election, I was like, this is bigger than what I think it is. Like it's deeper at the very least. And so that prompted me to get some help. And it was the most valuable thing I've ever done. And it's laborious, going to therapy is not fun. I mean, it's so ironic because the whole idea of therapy is, my intention was to get my head out of my ass, but in order to get your head out of your ass, you have to sit and talk about yourself for hours, a week. And so it's very confusing endeavor. You're like, okay, I want to stop being so self-involved, but I also, in order to become less self-involved, I have to be extra self-involved.
Yeah. And then you have to start adopting the what got you to Egypt won't get you to the promised land, because all of this got you here and like super successful and all of the things that you could ever want. And now you have to change the game. Was that hard?
I like that what you just said. What got you to Egypt won't get you to the promised land. Yes, because it was like, okay, so I went to therapy for 2 years. I went like twice a week. This amazing guy, Dan Siegel. And then when I was done, I was like, I think I'm wrapped here. Like, I think I've got it. It was pretty extensive, and I'm a very great learner as an adult. Like, if someone should send me to elementary school now, I'd pay attention. But I,
I'm the same way.
yeah,
I
right.
love learning now.
I
I
know.
pretended I liked it, then I hated it.
And then I got home. I mean, I I got done with therapy, and then it's like an absorption period. You have to actually absorb everything that you learned because you're hearing it, and you have to digest it. It's kind of like you go to school for 9 months out of the year, and then you have 3 months off in the summer. Those 3 months off are scheduled for the child to absorb what they've learned over the school year, to have
Well,
like
and you said in the book applying it too.
yeah. And then you have to apply it. So like you absorb it, which was another year, and then you have to apply it. And you're basically kind of almost, for me, I was like testing out and auditioning new personalities. Like, what about this person? I'm like, what if I don't talk now? And I'm funny still, but I'm not, insulting or critical or giving, giving unsolicited advice. And it just was confusing time where people were like, what's going on with you? I'm like, I don't know. I'm busy finding out who the fuck I am. So I guess I'll just stop socializing for a minute because people were just so kind of confused by it. I was like the party girl and the center of like a dinner party. Like I was the one telling funny stories, and to let go of that just because it's not my responsibility. It's okay to do it once in a while, but it's not a requirement for me to be at a party. And that's how everything felt. Like I felt like I had to be this person for all these other people. And that's such a crock of shit. Like no one's expecting anything from you.
Yeah. Guys, the book is called I'll Have What She Is Having. And another part in here that I loved, that I know the Heal Squad will love, is so often we're ready to give up or throw in the towel when right around the corner is a pocket of sunshine we hadn't known was headed straight for us. Even in my lowest moments, I keep my head geared toward the sky because I'm no longer in the business of missing rainbows. How many rainbows do you think you missed?
Oh, so many,
And what
probably.
does that mean for you?
I think missing rainbows is when you have a pity party for yourself, and that can mean so many different things, like so the devastation we've just experienced in LA, and like losing your house and your thing. That's one thing. That's like, okay, that's serious. But when you're in victim mode, independent of something like a travesty, like what happened in the Palisades and Eaton and Altadena, like, and everywhere, wherever we had fires recently in LA, like that is something where, of course, but even so, like there has to come a time where you pick it up, evaluate, and start putting one foot in front of the other, because like the stage of like feeling bad about yourself or feeling like sorry for yourself, or that you want pity, or that's just like a magnetism for more and more negativity. And we all know that, like, when you're positive, you beget more positivity. You have a magnetic field of attraction that attracts more and more positivity towards you. So like, you always want to just try for that, try and get into that positive mode, so that you are like a magnet for positivity.
That's why I wake up with my grateful list. And then when they're really tough in the mornings, I'm like, God, I'm
Yeah,
grateful.
sometimes you're like, what am I grateful for? Sometimes I'm like, is it okay to write my car?
Yeah, I'm grateful for this bed. Um, the other thing that I loved was the story about Jane Fonda. And what I loved about it is, so often nowadays, and I don't know when this exactly happened, but so often nowadays, someone misbehaves and we cut them off. We're like, I don't need that negative energy. I don't need that. I can't have that. And by the way, I've cut people from my parties that misbehaved because I was like, you can't handle yourself. Like, you are inappropriate. And generally it's like people who can't interact with celebrities. And then my celebrity friends are getting stalked and I'm like protective. So
Yeah.
you had a situation where Jane Fonda calls you and says, come over. You have no idea what's going to happen, but you know you're in trouble. And she tells you that you misbehaved at her party. It sounded like just like a mom being so disappointed in you. And I just love how you handled that moment. And I'd love for you to share with the Heal Squad what that was like for you.
Well, first of all, it was very scary because I was being summoned to Jane Fonda's house, and it sounded like something was going to happen. Like, it sounded like a stern email, which I share in the book. And so I go to her house. She asks me to dinner at her house, and then I've realized she means that night. And I'm like, okay, shit. And that sounded, I'm like, this sounds even worse than it did the first, email. Like, why does it's an emergency? And then I go to her house, and she basically sat me down at dinner, telling me that I acted terribly at her last party, she didn't know if I noticed, but she had been kind of ignoring me, or like I saw her at another event and she kind of gave me the cold shoulder. And again, I didn't notice because at that time in my life, I wasn't grounded enough to even consider what people like. If Jane Fonda gave me the cold shoulder, I'm like, oh, she must be having a bad day. Like, kind of a healthy attitude, but kind of also like like not at the right,
Unaware.
kind of in denial. So yeah, and she just said, you acted terribly at my party. You behaved badly. You insulted people. You were rude, obnoxious. And I was like, oh my God. And she's like, why would you have ever even come out to my party when you were in that kind of mood? And I was like, I had just started therapy, thank goodness, because I knew enough in the few weeks I had gone to therapy, that being defensive is not the answer to anything. Like, if you're defensive, you're wrong or lying. Like, if you're right, you don't have to be defensive. You don't have to argue. You can just let someone tell you the opposite of what is true, and it doesn't matter because you know what's true. But with that moment, I was like, don't be defensive, don't be defensive. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God. I was mortified, humiliation, like my face is red, my back of my neck is sweating. I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe I'm being called out by Jane Fonda right now. Like, this is definitely not the woman that I wanted to become. And then the biggest overarching thing that came over me was that she was being a sister. Like, talk about sisterhood. She didn't have to take the time out of her day to summon me to her house. She didn't even have to ever speak to me again. It's like what you said when we were starting this question. She could have just blown me off, like many of us do in this town. It's really easy town to blow someone off in. People move here to blow people off. And she could have just done that and never spoken to me again. But the fact that she took the time, that she saw that I was so much more than I was at that party, and that I had been going through something, difficult, or I was acting badly because of something that was, deep within me, and that I was exploring and finding out about, just really made me at that time think that's the kind of woman that I want to be. I want to be someone who's going to tell someone the truth when it's inconvenient and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, the other part about it that I loved was what you said here. What struck me in that moment was Jane's brutal honesty, something that has defined my entire career, but something I had never been on the receiving side of.
Mm.
I really loved that. I just loved how aware you were in that moment to take it in and to not want to disappoint her because, after that you talk about different moments. Um,
Also, it's also a great lesson in not being reactive within the moment, because it continued to, it meant one thing to me at that time. It was a motivating factor for me to continue going to therapy, to continue to, like, I needed to prove to her that she was never going to have to talk to me again. Like, I wanted her to know, you said something to me once and you won't have to say it twice. And over the years, it's just become more and more profoundly meaningful to me, even when I think back about it, on it. Like, it meant one thing in that moment, and it means even so much more now.
Last two things for this part. You were talking about how therapy was exhausting, in the sense that every new development or idea led to a period of intense self-awareness, followed by waves of acute self-consciousness, coupled with endless self-recrimination. This was an overcorrection on my part. I needed to stop looking outward and thinking about what people thought of me or feeling shame at how many people I have offended over the years. I needed to pivot toward thinking about the type of person I wanted to be rather than obsessing on the history of my behavior. That's really solid advice for people because I think that so many people just continue to live in the shame and in the regret rather than saying, okay, I'm human, I made a mistake. How am I going to fix it and fix my behavior moving forward?
Hmm. Yeah, that's another nice thing about aging. When people ask me about turning 50, I'm just like, I'm trying to come up with some original, interesting thing to say other than I feel great. Like, I find that, like, the answers to turning 50 lame, and the questions about turning 50 can be lame too, because it's like, it focuses solely on a number, which, it's just, that's a measurement of what, really. But I think,
No one asks a guy what's it like turning 50, by the
yeah,
way.
right. No one
It
ever
just
ever does.
implies that we're old and it's over. And how do you feel now?
But
Or
when
is
I
it
talk
hope
to
for
my
us?
girlfriends about the number 50, like, what is it? What do you guys think it is that you haven't heard before? Like, and my one friend was like, the great thing about being 50 is that you spend your 20s, 30s, and 40s so consumed with what you've done, the mistakes you've made, and what's going to happen in the future. And by the time you're 50, you don't give a shit about the past or the future. Like, you're just in the moment. You're not regretting every small misstep you made. You're like, oh, whoopsie doodle, that's too bad. Too bad. Hopefully I can revisit that or correct that somewhere down the line, but I'm not going to be consumed by my regret. And I'm also not worried about the future because I'm the one who got me here. I'm here with me. I'm not freaking out about what if this is my last opportunity? What if there's no more, like, desperation about, are you going to remain relevant? Is your career going to be okay? Like, I have 25 years of data telling me that I always eh, end up on my feet, like that I'm always going to have some sort of creative outlet that will be fruitful for me, where I can make a living. And because of my work ethic, like, you stop worrying about whether or not you're capable and start understanding that you are.
Yeah, the data is really, really important. And I don't think a lot of people look to that for guidance. And so I thought that was really powerful. And then I also loved when you wrote, I had to blend my fresh awareness with the good parts of my old personality while also dropping the behaviors and habits that were hurtful to me and to the people in my life. I think that there's so much incredible advice, whether you were trying to do that or not in this. I'm going to stop right here, guys. Tomorrow, I'm going to chat with Chelsea about working in TV, what she loved, what she didn't love. And then I'm going to ask her my new "what do you do when" series questions, because she has such great advice. In the meantime, friends, be nice people, make good choices, and be present. Hey, Heal Squad. We have been on quite the journey together, and we're hearing from so many of you just how much this show is helping you heal and get better, and it makes us feel so good. We love, love, love it, and we just ask that you don't keep it to yourself. Spread the message and share the show or your favorite episode with your friends. And if you want to help us even more, you can leave us a 5-star rating and a comment on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and follow us on Instagram at Heal Squad. You can also DM us anytime because we love connecting with you. And finally, you can also join us on Patreon for our monthly live heal events with world-class healers and ad-free episodes exclusive only to Patreon and our Super Heal Squad for as little as $10 a month. So go to patreon.com/Heal Squad to join. Getting better isn't easy, friends, but as I say all the time, it's a whole lot easier if we can do it together. We love you all so much, and we love doing this thing called life with you.
This podcast and all related content published or distributed by or on behalf of Maria Menounos or MariaMenounos.com is for informational purposes only and may include information that is general in nature and that is not specific to you. Any information or opinions expressed or contained herein are not intended to serve as or replace medical advice, nor to diagnose, prescribe, or treat any disease, condition, illness, or injury, and you should consult the healthcare professional of your choice regarding all matters concerning your health, including before beginning any exercise, weight loss, or healthcare program. If you have or suspect you may have a healthcare emergency, please contact a qualified healthcare professional for treatment. Any information or opinions provided by a guest expert or host featured within website or on company's podcast are their own, not those of Maria Menounos or the company. Accordingly, Maria Menounos and the company cannot be responsible for any results or consequences or actions you may take based on information or opinions.